What if I told you that the greatest battle in human history is not happening on a battlefield, but inside your mind right now? Every time you choose discipline over distraction, honesty over shortcuts, courage over fear, you are fighting your own Mahabharata. And surprisingly, this entire psychological battle begins with the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Today, we'll uncover the hidden meaning, scientific relevance, real-life applications, and a powerful life lesson hidden inside just one verse. The Bhagavad Gita begins with a question asked by the blind king Dhritarashtra. At first glance, it seems like a simple question about a war. But for over 2000 years, philosophers, psychologists, leaders, and spiritual seekers have discovered deeper meanings hidden inside it. What appears to be a conversation about a battlefield gradually reveals timeless insights about human nature, moral dilemmas, inner conflicts, leadership, duty, decision-making, and the eternal struggle between right and wrong that every person faces in life. It challenges us to ask a profound question: is the real battle fought on distant fields, or within our own minds, where fear, desire, wisdom, and conscience constantly compete for control? And perhaps that is why the Bhagavad Gita remains relevant even today, not as a story of an ancient war, but as a practical guide for navigating the challenges, uncertainties, and ethical choices of everyday life. The first Shloka of Bhagavad Gita is Dharmakshetre Kurukshetra Samaveta Yuyutsavah Mamakah Pandavas Chaiva Akurvata Sanjaya. The meaning of this Shloka is, O Sanjaya, assembled on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, eager for battle, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? At first glance, this appears to be a simple question. However, every word in this verse reveals something profound about human psychology, ethics, and leadership. The Mahabharata war was not a conflict between strangers. It was a war between members of the same family. On one side stood the Kauravas, led by Duryodhan. On the other side stood the Pandavas, led by Yudhishthir. They were cousins. They grew up together, learned from the same teachers, played in the same palace, and belonged to the same royal dynasty. So the real tragedy of the Mahabharata is not that a war happened. The tragedy is that greed, jealousy, and attachment became stronger than family bonds. Dhritarashtra was physically blind from birth. But the Gita suggests another kind of blindness. A blindness that is far more dangerous. The blindness of attachment. He knew that Duryodhan was jealous of the Pandavas. He knew about the conspiracy to burn them alive in the Lakshagriha. He knew that the Pandavas had been cheated in the game of dice. He knew that Draupadi had been publicly humiliated. He knew all this. Yet he remained silent. Why? Because his love for his own son became stronger than his commitment to justice. Now let's look at a single word from the verse. Mamakah. It means, my sons. At first glance, this seems normal. Of course, a father would call them his sons. But think carefully. Dhritarashtra was not just a father. He was also the king. The Pandavas were his nephews. He had raised them in his palace. They were also part of his family. So why doesn't he say, what did our children do? Why does he say, my sons and the sons of Pandu? With a single word, he creates division. My side. Their side. And this is where many human conflicts begin. The moment we divide the world into mine and not mine, attachment is born. And when attachment grows, fairness begins to disappear. Let us take real-life examples. A parent may ignore their child's mistakes because he is my son. A manager may promote an incompetent employee because he belongs to my group. The first verse of the Bhagavad Gita is not merely introducing a war. It is introducing a universal human weakness. The weakness of attachment. Dhritarashtra's blindness was not in his eyes. It was in his judgment. And before we criticize him, perhaps we should ask ourselves a difficult question. Where in my life am I acting like Dhritarashtra? What truth am I refusing to see because of my attachment? And that question makes the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. What if Kurukshetra is not merely a physical place? The Gita invites us to see it as a metaphor. Kurukshetra is equal to human life. Dharmakshetre is equal to field of moral choices. The Kauravas become our negative tendencies. Ego, anger, laziness, fear, greed. The Pandavas become our higher qualities. Wisdom, courage, discipline, integrity, compassion. Every morning, these two armies gather inside your mind. The real question of the Gita is not who won the war. The real question is who is winning inside you. Modern neuroscience reveals something fascinating. The human brain contains systems constantly competing for control of limbic system and prefrontal cortex. Limbic system consists of immediate pleasure, emotions, impulses. Prefrontal cortex consists of logic, planning, self-control. When you choose Instagram instead of studying, the limbic system is winning. When you continue studying despite distractions, the prefrontal cortex is winning. Thousands of years before neuroscience existed, the Gita described a similar inner battle. In the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, children who resisted immediate rewards generally achieved better academic and life outcomes later. The lesson: long-term success often depends on winning small daily battles against immediate temptation. Let's understand this through a simple story. A student is preparing for the examination. One evening, he sat down to study. Suddenly his phone lit up. Friends invited him to play games. New videos appeared. Notifications flooded the screen. Inside his mind, a war began. The Pandavas whispered, "Study now. Your future depends on today's effort." The Kauravas replied, "Just one video. One game. You can study later." For 10 minutes the battle continued. Finally, student switched off his phone and opened his books. Months later, he cleared the examination. His victory wasn't achieved on exam day. It was achieved in thousands of invisible battles he won against himself. Research shows that the average person checks their smartphone dozens of times daily. Many studies have linked excessive digital distractions with lower productivity and reduced attention span. Psychologists also find that people who align daily actions with their values tend to experience greater life satisfaction and resilience. This is exactly what the Gita teaches. Victory is not about defeating others. Victory begins with mastering yourself. For students, your Kurukshetra is discipline versus distraction. For professionals, your Kurukshetra is ethics versus shortcuts. For leaders, your Kurukshetra is responsibility versus selfish ambition. The battlefield changes. The battle remains the same. The Bhagavad Gita begins with a question. What happened on the battlefield? But after understanding this verse, another question emerges. What is happening on the battlefield within me? Every day your Pandavas and Kauravas assemble. Every day you choose who becomes stronger. And that choice shapes your destiny. The Bhagavad Gita begins with a question from Dhritarashtra. But after understanding this verse, perhaps a bigger question remains. If Dhritarashtra's attachment destroyed an entire kingdom, what is one attachment in your life that might be silently controlling your decisions today? Think about it carefully and share your thoughts in comment section.